Hello friends, here we are in early July. So we've just passed the first 6 months, the halfway point of 2020, arguably the most interesting 6 months of most of our lives. And then from a real estate market perspective, incredibly bizarre and unique. Every month so far in 2020 has sort of had its own flavor, its own sort of vibe and atmosphere. Some really positive, some really active, some simply dead and just knocked right out. So we're going to look at the market the first 6 months, the first half of 2020, and really just touch on the main key points. And then below here, there is going to be a link to a full blog article where you'll see all kinds of data and stats. It's not, it's not all numbers. There's just some insight and perspective that we put together for you to help explain. We're going to look at 3 segments of the market. We're going to look at what pricing is happening or what's happening with pricing, sales volume, so the number of homes that have changed hands and what's happening with that, and then the new listing inventory, the supply side of things, and what's going on with supply and options for a buyer. Those 3 things we'll look at real quick, and let's get into it. So you've all been to like a Canada's Wonderland or a place like that. Before it opens, as it gets closer to the point of opening, the crowd starts to gather and more people get there, and there's a bit more buzz and a bit more activity, and then those gates open and boom, everybody's gone to get on their respective water slide. So in essence, I think that's what happened, where April, everybody was told to stay where you are. So remember, there's lots of people that have to sell, whether it's family change, job change, whatever change, that have to sell. So those people were told to stay where they are. May, some of them came out, but a lot of them were still staying put. So part of what I think might have happened in June and what's happening right now is this sort of pent-up activity. So now the gates are open, the water slides open, pools, the waves are rocking, and people are saying, okay, let's go, right? So as a result, some of the June numbers were outrageous when you look year over year, when you're looking just June 2020 versus June 2019. And so we try to look at trends. We'd rather look at June, May, April, March, February, January, back in the end of 2019, as opposed to isolating June 2020 versus June 2019. So let's talk about some of the numbers for June 2020. So for Niagara region, the month of June, 549,000 was the average sale price across the board. Now that blew out May 2020, which was the previous record holder at 509,000. Part of that is when we went back to March, April, somewhat in May, that higher end of the market, the 758 million plus market, went really quiet. And so part of that is we've now seen a bunch of those properties move that has likely pulled that average sale price up to the 549. Will it live there in July and August? I don't expect so. Could I be wrong? 100%. But I would expect that average sale price to come back down from that 549, but that's where it was for June 2020. St. Catharines set an all-time record for any month. June 2020 average sale price was 478,000. The previous record was February 2020 at 466. It's been largely living in that 450, 460, 470 range the whole year. But yeah, 478 for June 2020. Niagara Falls, May and June 2020 were the first and second highest sale price on record. May was 501,000. This previous month, June 2020, Niagara Falls average sale price was 479,000. And that carries on through most markets. Again, the report that you'll see, the reports that are linked below will walk you through each city. If you're curious what's going on in Port Colborne or Fort Erie or whatever, it's all there. But we are not huge fans of looking month over month because it's a really sort of a narrow scope. So let's look at year to date. What's happening when you take the first 6 months of 2020 and compare them to 2019? So the first 6 months of 2020, year to date, St. Catharines is up 7.7% at 468,000. So that's all residential. Average sale price so far in 2020 for St. Catharines at 468,000. Niagara Falls, the second highest volume market in Niagara, meaning the second highest number of homes change hands in Niagara Falls behind St. Catharines. So Niagara Falls average sale price up 9.3% to 472,000. Fort Erie up 19.5% to 459,000. Now in the reports that are linked below, you'll see we did some reports where you took new builds out of the data because they do factor in. So for example, Thorold, the average sale price is up 8.3% to 471,000. When you take new builds out, that average sale price does come down some, but still at record levels for Thorold. Same goes for Welland, lots of new builds there. Niagara Lake, average sale price up 7.6% to $873,000 so far in 2020. And then for the Niagara region as a whole, the average sale price up 11.5%, 11.4% I think it is, at $510,000. Again, that $549 in June, certainly pulling that number up. But that's where the Niagara region as a whole is up, average sale price up 11.4% so far in 2020 to $510,000. So that's pricing. One of the most interesting pieces of data or sides of the market I think to look at is the sales volume. So that's how many houses are changing hands. And remember back in April, most cities were down 55, 60, 65%. And that's not just Niagara, that was Toronto, that was west of here, north of here, and that was the trend. So April, when everybody went quiet, remember we were all thinking about how much toilet paper we had left. So the total number of sales back then were down 60, 65%. And then May, they were down 30, 35%. And so there was this incremental growth happening. So now June, amazingly enough, June for every city in Niagara except for one, the total number of sales for the month of June 2020 were more than in 2019. So that's pretty incredible, right? So for example, June year over year, Niagara Falls had 9.7% more sales, Thorold up 9.5%, Welland up 13%, Fonthill up 8%, Fort Erie up 30%, Niagara Lake up 12.5%. The one city that had a decline in the number of sales went from 206 to 204, and that's St. Catharines, down, I guess it's about 2%, 1%. So again, 2 sales difference, but that's the only city that was in the negative, so barely out. You could almost call that a tie anyway. But again, that's just June year over year. So let's look at year to date. So with the decline of 65% in April to 35% to equal numbers, now we're seeing that year to date trend sort of melt away or round the edge off a little bit. So the Niagara region year to date is only down 13.5% total number of sales, after being down 62% in April. So 13.5% for the Niagara region as a whole. Niagara Falls is only down 10% year to date. So given the trends that they're on, by the time Labor Day hits, some of these cities have a chance of being very close in terms of the number of homes sold so far in 2020, which is incredible. If you would have asked me that back in April when we were down 65%, I wouldn't have agreed with myself today, but I think that's where we're going to get to. The biggest drop year to date in the total number of sales, ironically enough, is St. Catharines. St. Catharines is down 22% so far in the year. So again, down 60-65% in April, down 30-odd% in May, year to date down 22%. But things are happening, but we're still a little bit, St. Catharines is a little bit hungry for inventory in some areas. So we'll see what shakes out with that over July and August. But that's a quick look at the total number of homes sold. So we've talked a lot about the race between the number of new listings and the demand for those listings, or the supply and demand, right? And so one thing we saw in June, and again you'll see it in one of the reports below, you'll see that June 2020 new listings for Niagara beat the number of new listings that came out in June 2019. Not by a lot though. So with all the pent up demand, with sales going up by 11.5%, price going up by all these numbers that you've seen, the number of new listings did not go up drastically from June 2019, which is interesting because had that, that same concept of pent up hit the new listings where all of a sudden we were flooded, we might see a different dynamic out there right now. But right now it's not oversaturated. In some markets, some neighborhoods, some areas are actually undersupplied. So it's hard to get into that here with data because it's so nuanced, right? You can have this area of the city is behaving one way, this area of the city is behaving another. So the reports will say it all, will show you, but that's the piece that we're still watching to see what happens with new inventory and what comes up, what price segment, what area, and all that kind of stuff. Again, thanks guys for tuning in and checking out the Niagara Real Estate Market Report. If you like this stuff, if you want to keep tabs on the market a little bit better, hit subscribe button on the YouTube channel, hit the notifications bell, and all the other things YouTube people say. And it's a great way to keep up to date because we do put out content fairly regularly. Sometimes it's longer reports, sometimes it's just a quick snapshot of what's going on. But this was the first half of 2020, a first half that will go down in infamy as far as I'm concerned. Thanks for tuning in, and stay in touch. All right, see ya. Bye.